What is the whole thing behind chords being so emotional? There's a ton of TikTok videos and YouTube shorts and Instagram reels that could be an edit of something showing a certain emotion. Let's take a look at the music behind it. And I think the best way to do that is to play you the song, or a rubbish cover I did of the song we're going to be talking about. I think you know what song this is. It's Creep by Radiohead. It's in G major, well, sort of, it's not really. It borrows a few chords and becomes a useless joke. I'm talking about the scale, not the song. It goes 1 into 3 into 4 into lowercase 4, aka I into I into IV into IV. Of course, the lowercase IV, then back to I again, aka 1. The main part I would like to talk about is the last two chords and the first chord. The amount of emotion carried in these chords is quite something. The jump from major to minor hits someone emotionally, like stubbing their toe. And then the jump back to 3, just it's different. It's quite hard to explain, but this is definitely not the only song that uses the chord progression. You can hear the same sort of sound in My Love Mine, All Mine by Mitski, who also made the popular song Washing Machine Heart. There is another case of the same chord progression being used in The Air That I Breathe by the Hollies. In fact, Radiohead actually got in a case with the Hollies for allegedly copying their song. If you thought that was the final song, you would be wrong. No one really realises, but in the section of Buddy Holly by Weezer that got really popular, the last two chords and the first chord do the same jump once again, you know. If you listen closer, you'll hear it. For anyone wondering where that occurs, the song, it's at 2 minutes 4 seconds, just if you want to check it out. I think we need to dive into the emotion behind chord changes, so we're going to do that now. In music, we hear this major minor with the same root note, then into a different one, like for instance that iconic C major, C minor into G major. That's the 3 chords, the last 2 and the first chord in Creep by Radiohead. We hear this all the time. I mean, it always hits, but what about some other examples? I've been taking a look at the artist Jabu's short form 1 4-bar loop a day keeps the doctor away series, and in his latest I Wish I Had Cankles YouTube short, I found something interesting in his chord progression that gave off a similar emotion to the IV progression. Let's take a look at it. He says in the video that his chord progression is in D major and the chords are G over D, G over B, G over F sharp, G, G over B, and finally G minor over B flat. He stated before this that he used a G major 7 shaped pedal point and just moved around the bottom note, as we can see. I was quite quick to realise why this sounds so emotional. The first 4 chords are normal, but then when it repeats, it doesn't do the exact same thing. Instead of repeating the G at the end, he does G minor over B flat. If I do A into C into G into F and then repeat but do an F minor at the end, the emotion changes once again. And when you hit that A to start over again, that sort of heartbeat feeling really hits. Trust me. Now listen closer. I think there is actually something more to it. It's also about the situation, because I could see how the heartbreak emotion would unfold in that, but I suppose with that minor, especially given it's an F minor, it could also be considered ominous. So just like that, I could easily recreate that emotion, but I have another question. Is it just chord changes that affect the emotion? I think not. We've already established that the emotion of a song is also based on the situation you were in, so we can move on from that, but what about something completely unrelated from chord progressions? The actual instrument. If you play it on piano or guitar or something with a fair amount of sustain in its volume, it still works, but what about in a short pluck? If you actually listen to the full I Wish I Had Cankles song by Jabu, you'll hear in the drop it's still the same chord progression but with a very short and snappy pluck. I believe it's an arpeggiator as well. It no longer feels as intense, it just feels quite like chugging ahead or forward thinking almost. So I think we got to talk about the actual system behind it, and that is ADSR. You might have heard of it and you might have not. Audio engineers and producers probably have. It stands for Attack, decay, sustain, release. Attack is very similar to fade in on an audio clip. Decay is the time it takes from it to get from its loudest to its sustained volume. Sustain is how loud the sound stays for the time you're playing it. Release is how long the note lasts after you have finished playing it. ADSR is most commonly used in synthesis. You've seen it in analog synthesizers like the Moog Grandmother or the Korg Minilog. But you also see it in digital synthesizers in VSTs like Vital or Serum or Phase Plant. By using a sound with a very high sustain level, the stronger the emotion is, but the lower you make the sustain and the shorter you make the decay, the less intense the emotion gets, and the more it changes into another. It isn't only that, it is also like the type of sound, so for this part I'm going to mainly focus on digital synthesizers. Just give me a second. The main types of wavetables you have are sines, triangles, saws, and squares. Sines are just one fundamental harmonic. Triangles or squares are made up of odd harmonics, and saws are made up of both even and odd harmonics. Given that sines are just one harmonic, when you play such chord progressions we've spoken about with a sine wave, it feels quite calm and still carries the same emotion, like smooth and pure in a way with that specific wave. You get a similar effect with a triangle wave, as the amplitude of a triangle wave's harmonics get smaller exponentially. You then have a saw wave, which is quite strong harmonics as the amplitude changes in a linear way. This is probably where the emotion felt in one of the chord progressions is the strongest. Then you have a square wave. It's slightly less emotional than the saw wave, and this isn't to do with the amplitude of the harmonics, it's to do with the fact that square waves have always been associated with things like arcades and 8-bit games and such. There's one last thing we haven't covered though, and I think it's time to talk about microtones. Microtones are like the scales of scales. Scales are about what notes you can play, and microtones are about where the notes even are. Many people still think that notes are just C, D, E, F, G, A, B when it really isn't. What about the actual frequencies of the notes? In Western music, we rely on a type of microtuning called equal temperament, which I'm not a fan of. It is meant to be easy and simple, when in reality it's just secretly out of tune. This is my opinion on it, by the way. This is where just intonation comes in. Just intonation mathematically aligns up each note perfectly so that when you play a perfect fifth, for instance, the harmonics are perfectly aligned and not causing that wobble you hear when you play chords usually, which is more usually called beating. A great user and teacher of microtones is the artist called Alaboy. He makes a ton of music in just intonation, and it's part of the reason his songs went so viral, I think. It's because nobody had really heard something like this. Unfortunately, just intonation is not all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. See, just intonation is a microtone that is tuned relative to one note, just like any other. So if you tuned it to C and played an F sharp major, it would sound absolutely horrifying, especially on a saw wave, because that's got odd and even harmonics. It's called the Wolf interval. To sum everything up about just intonation, it makes many chords sound heavenly and lifting, and makes other sounds like they are screaming for help. I would like to say one thing before I end this short video. There are like Alobend, for instance, made by Alaboy. You've got dynamic just intonation, which automatically tunes to the note you're playing. So it's always in tune no matter the chord you play. There will never be a Wolf interval ever again. At least I believe so, but I'm not paying any money to buy it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and goodbye.